In this video, we're going to cover some basic troubleshooting in your dashboard. One of the issues that you might see coming up from time to time is where Basic has been unable to retrieve your customers' accounts and transaction data from their bank. So we're going to cover how can you tell what went wrong and how can you resolve that situation so that we can actually retrieve your customers' data. So we've got a demo user over here. Our customer Jian Yang has connected his Huli Bank to Basic. If we click on that connection, then we get a list of their job history. So really this is just a record of each time that Basic has connected to Jian Yang's Huli Bank account to try and fetch his data, and what was the result of that attempted fetch. So in this case we can see their Basic has connected twice to Jian Yang's Huli Bank account, but both of those attempts to fetch data have failed. If we click on the job steps, we can then see that the authentication step has completed successfully, but there was a problem fetching accounts and transactions. You can click on the JSON button over there to get the full response from the API, which contains a lot more information for you. We can see over here that the credential step, so the authentication, completed successfully, but over here we can see that the accounts and transaction step have failed with this service unavailable error message, and there's a friendlier text over here for you as well. So now in terms of, well, what exactly does that error mean and how do you resolve that issue, we do have advice for handling job errors in our API documentation, and that is over here. The first two error codes that the documentation covers are really only error codes that you're going to see in web connections, not in CDR. So for example, invalid credentials, this is if the user provided credentials that don't grant access to their internet banking, or account not accessible requires user action. So this is returned if Basic encounters a pop-up in the customer's internet banking that blocked us from proceeding, such as new terms and conditions to acknowledge. In both of those cases, the advice is really for you to work with your customer to either confirm that their login was correct that they provided, or to fix that up if needed, or to log into their internet banking to clear that pop-up, to acknowledge those new terms and conditions. Once that error situation is resolved, on the next refresh of the Basic connection, that data should then pull through. What do I mean by refresh? I'm going to show you that in just a second. In our case, we got a third error over here. This is really the only error code that you're going to see under CDR. You will see it under web connections as well. Really what this means, it's kind of a generic error code. It really just means that we've encountered some kind of unexpected condition where we were unable to return data from the bank. This could be the bank has had a temporary performance issue. They're literally unable to respond to our requests. That doesn't really happen all that often, certainly not under CDR. And then the other common, or not common, but the other situation that we see happening in CDR is where the bank has returned data, but that data has failed our validation, and so we have not returned it to you because we don't have confidence in that data. So okay, so that's what the error means, but how do you then resolve it? So our advice is let your user know that there's a problem fetching their data. There's nothing for them to do, so they can leave that with you, and then you can then set about triaging for yourself. And so what you can do, what we recommend that you do, is the first thing is go to the status page in your Basic dashboard and have a look to see what is that institution's status at the moment. So in this case, Huli Bank, we can see that that's operational. In this case, you would also be checking, are you enabled for CDR for this bank? If so, then you would be checking the Open Banking connector. If you are enabled for web connections for this bank, then you'd be checking the web connector. In our case, for this demo bank, there is only a web connector. That's operational. So if you're not sure what the status means and what the recommended action is, you can actually select that status in the drop-down, and there's a handy tip over here. So for operational, really most jobs are succeeding, and so we recommend that you just try refreshing that job. And so in our case, we're going to go back to that user, we're going to refresh the connection. That then triggers a new job. In our case, this is going to fail because this is a demo connection which is set up to fail every single time. Hopefully in your case, in the real world, that was a temporary issue and the error will have cleared. That new job is over here. If you do have any further issues, if the error doesn't clear, then just report that to Basic support.